Hi, and welcome to Quiltmas Day. I'm so glad you're here, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. My Missouri Star box opening and honest reaction is at the end of the video, so stick around to find out what I really think. And now, on with the show. Recently, it occurred to me that I've told my Quilting Journey story on lots of interviews, but I've never told it here on my own channel. So that's what I'm going to do today. I've always been surrounded by quilts. As a Southern girl, they're such a part of our heritage as to be ubiquitous. My mother loved quilts. And when quilts and quilt making began making a huge comeback in the late 80s, they were even more prevalent in my life. My grandparents were gone before I was born, and my mom never quilted or sewed by machine. She did beautiful hand hemming. She was 5'1", so everything had to be hemmed, but not any machine work. So I didn't learn at mom or grandmother's knee or anything so romantic as that. But my mom always wanted me to have creative outlets, other than drawing with markers on the hardwood floors. That's a story for another time. At some point, I got a sewing machine for my birthday. I think I was 16, and I sewed a skirt and I don't know, some napkins or other things. Then one day when, probably home sick from school, enter PBS and Georgia Bonesteel with the joy of lap quilting and Eleanor Burns with her quilt in a day, and I was smitten. Georgia's step-by-step breakdowns and Eleanor's just pure joy were all it took. I read everything I could get my hands on from the local library, and I scoured the newspaper TV listings for any possible PBS quilting sewing content. There was a quilt shop in our area, but to say they were not very accommodating is being generous. So I went it alone, and I learned both the hard way and not to be too particular about precision. After all, the quilts I had experienced were utility quilts. They were made for use out of random scraps, and so my reference point for what is a quilt was not an heirloom Baltimore album quilt or anything close to that. I think the fanciest quilt I had ever seen was a Dutch doll Sunbonnet Sue quilt that we weren't allowed to use. You guys know that is still what I love. I played at patchwork and quilting off and on for a few years. And then I got really into it not long after Casey and I were married. My teachers were still on TV, we had cable now, and in magazines. Sue Hausmann and later Alex Anderson and Fons and Porter. I still read anything I could get my hands on. Then came the blogs. The late 90s and the early 2000s and the blogs. Man, I lived for that stuff. This is where technology exploded my world and my idea of what quilting could be. Bonnie Hunter with her scraps and men's shirts and wealth of knowledge and her willingness to share it. Anna Maria Horner and her vision with color. Freddy Moran and the late Gwen Marsten and the freedom that they exuded. On some show at some point, it might have been HGTV back when it was HGTV, but it might have been something else entirely. Doesn't really matter. I saw a studio tour of Freddy Moran's studio. The cacophony of color with the black and white floor and her red is a neutral belief, and it's like my heart and my brain cracked open. I only wanted to make loud, ambitious, colorful quilts, and now I had permission. I knew I could make whatever I wanted. Freddy's unbridled love of color is absolutely contagious. Anna Maria Horner is still a favorite, and one of the few I will buy an entire line from without hesitation. I remember a blog post from long ago where Anna told the story of sitting in one of her fine arts classes, and the professor asked, "What determines which colors go together?" She answered, "I do." I don't remember what her professor thought of her proclamation, but that stuck with me. It still sticks with me. I'm the boss of my own quilting. You're probably noticing a theme. The quilters that I learned from early on and deeper in are all amazingly talented women who make or made their own way and do things the way they want to. If you haven't noticed, I don't like to be told what to do. So it only makes sense that I'm drawn to free-thinking and creative quilters. I've done a bunch of crafts through the years, from rubber stamping and paper crafting to knitting, spinning, and weaving. I still knit and spin and weave sometimes. But through it all, quilting was always there. And now it's my primary creative outlet. I learned from TV and books and blogs and experimentation, and I made my own way in the quilting world. It's not perfect. It's not conventional, but it's mine, and I'm happy with it. I'm happy to continue learning. I love making quilts. I love piecing and pressing. I love the sound of the sewing machine. I love handwork and color. I love the feel of fabrics. I love digging through a scrap bin to find just the right color or pattern. It is all joy. But the thing I love most is giving a quilt to someone else. It's a physical acknowledgement of, I love you enough to think about you this much. Then that person gets to feel that love every time they snuggle under the quilt, and it is just the best. Now, here I am on YouTube talking about quilts and quilters and quilting with all of you, having the most fun and experiencing quilting and the quilting community in new ways. I cannot wait to see what's next on this journey. Everyone that I've spoken about is linked below, along with a few others for good measure, so be sure and check those out. Stay tuned for today's countdown box opening, and I'll be right back to see us out. Missouri Advent Day 5. It's very lightweight and puffy. Okay. It's, oh, and there's little stars and little stabby stars in there too. Look at there. Stabby stars. I'm more tickled about the stabby stars than I am about the little tree forms. But they come with a pattern, and it looks fabric twine. Okay, so it looks like you use coiled fabric to cover the styrofoam form and make some little holiday decorations. Okay. Thanks so much for joining me for day 5 of Quiltmas. In the comments, let me know who taught you or how you came to quilting. And if you've got the time, I'd love to know other creative things that you've ventured into along the way. Like I mentioned, everyone is linked in the description box, and while you're down there, click, 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 clickety click. Please click the like, subscribe, share. Thank you so much for being part of my continuing quilting story, and don't forget that you make the world more beautiful just by being in it. I'm Amy, and I'll see you next time.